Welcome back to bmaster79. In this video we are taking one complete ielts speaking topic part 2 and part 3 and building band 9 answers from nothing. Describe an outdoor activity you did in a new place recently. Here is the plan. First, how part 2 actually works. Then the cue card itself, and some honest notes about its wording. Then a 60-second planning method, a brainstorm for each bullet, the full model answer, and finally all 5 part 3 questions with answers and the language that makes them work. Part 2. The long turn. The examiner gives you a card along with paper and a pencil. You get exactly 1 minute to prepare. You then speak for 1 to 2 minutes without being interrupted. At 2 minutes the examiner stops you, and being stopped costs you nothing at all. The bullet points are prompts, not a checklist. Covering them is simply the cheapest way to stay fluent for 2 whole minutes.
This is the card transcribed exactly as it is printed. Describe an outdoor activity you did in a new place recently. You should say what the activity is, who invited you to participate in it, and whether you asked for help in the activity. And explain what change you had in the activity.
Before we plan, 3 honest notes about this card. We flag these rather than quietly fixing them. The first bullet is in the present tense even though the task is about something you did recently, so answer in the past. The third bullet says help in the activity where standard English would say help with. And the final line is genuinely ambiguous. It could mean a change in the activity or a change in you. The safe move is to answer both. Now the planning method. 4 bullets, 4 chunks about 30 seconds each. In the first 15 seconds, choose one real experience and commit to it, because indecision is what eats the whole minute. From 15 to 45 seconds, write 3 or 4 keywords per bullet. Nouns and verbs only, never sentences. And in the last 15 seconds, plan your final line so that you finish rather than trail off. One note before the model answers. They use an invented candidate, Mai, a 24-year-old from Hanoi. Copy the technique, not the content. Your own experience will always sound more convincing than a borrowed one. Bullet 1. What the activity is. Name something specific. Canyoning scores marks. I went outside does not. Anchor what, where and when inside your first 2 sentences, and if the activity is unusual, define it in 1 line because explaining beats naming. And notice the card says a new place, so say explicitly why the place was new to you. Bullet 2. Who invited you? Name the person and give them one characterizing detail so it stops sounding invented. Say how the invitation actually happened, not just who made it. And add why you said yes, or nearly didn't, because that is a free miniature story. Bullet 3. Whether you asked for help. Yes or no takes 1 word, so every mark is in the story behind it. Choose one concrete moment instead of a general claim. Be honest even if it is unflattering, because a band 9 answer is allowed to admit fear. And say what the help actually consisted of, step by step. Bullet 4. What change you had. Because the wording is ambiguous, cover both readings and you cannot be marked down. Reading 1. What changed in the activity itself, the plan, the route, the conditions. Reading 2. What changed in you, your attitude, your self-image. Then close with evidence that the change lasted, because a concrete consequence beats an adjective. So here is what 1 minute of notes should actually look like. 6 lines, no sentences, and a planned final line already waiting at the bottom. You cannot read a script aloud and sound natural, but you can absolutely speak for 2 minutes from this.
I'd like to talk about a canyoning trip I did in Darlat in the Central Highlands about 2 months ago. For anyone who hasn't come across canyoning, it basically involves abseiling down waterfalls and scrambling through a river gorge. It was completely new territory for me. I'd never been to that part of the country before, let alone thrown myself backwards off a waterfall. It came about through my cousin Maya. She's the outdoorsy one in the family, and she'd been badgering me for years to get out of the city at weekends. When a place opened up on a booking she'd already made, she rang me and gave me very little room to say no. I think she knew that if she gave me time to think it over, I'd have talked myself out of it. As for help, I asked for an enormous amount of it, and I'm not remotely embarrassed about that. We had a guide called Di, and at the top of the first big drop I completely froze. I couldn't make myself lean back over the edge, so I said it out loud. I told him I was terrified and needed him to talk me through it step by step.
He rechecked my harness, got me to look at him rather than at the drop, and counted me down.
Without that, I'd still be standing there. As for what changed, two things really. The activity itself changed halfway through because the water was running higher than expected, so the guide swapped the final jump for a longer abseil. But the bigger change was in me. I went in assuming I simply wasn't built for that sort of thing, and I came out realizing that what I'd been calling not being sporty was mostly just never having tried. I've since joined a climbing gym, which is not something I'd ever have predicted.
Here is the first half of the answer in one piece so you can see how the chunks join up into a single unbroken turn. Pause the video and read it through, and notice that there is not one linking word like firstly or moreover anywhere in it. And the second half, 317 words in total, which at a natural pace of 150 to 165 words per minute comes out at roughly 1 minute 55 to 2 minutes and 7 seconds. That is exactly where you want to be, long enough to fill the turn, short enough that you finish your own final sentence. And here is the language that did the work. Notice how little of it is rare vocabulary. Most of it is ordinary words in precise combinations, plus 3 grammar structures used because the meaning needed them. Now part 3, 4 to 6 minutes of discussion, following on from your part 2 topic. The questions turn abstract and stop being about you. Aim for roughly 40 to 60 seconds per answer, a position, your reasons, then a qualification. And if the examiner pushes back, that is a good sign, not a trap. Question 1. What outdoor activities do people in your country usually do? Here is how to build the answer.
It varies enormously by generation, I'd say. Older people tend to go in for gentler, sociable things, walking around the lake at dawn, group exercise in the public parks, badminton in the street once the traffic dies down. Younger people have moved towards more adventurous pursuits over the last decades. Trekking in the northern mountains, motorbike touring, and camping, which has become almost a lifestyle trend, partly driven by social media. And then we have a very long coastline, so anything sea-based is popular in the summer months.
Question 2. Why do some people not like doing outdoor activities? Here is how to build the answer.
A few reasons come to mind.
The most obvious one is simply comfort.
If you live somewhere with punishing heat and humidity, being outdoors is genuinely unpleasant for a good chunk of the year. Beyond that, I think there's a confidence barrier. People who weren't encouraged to be active as children often carry this belief that they are bad at sports, and that is a hard thing to shake off in adulthood. And there's a practical dimension too. Outdoor pursuits get expensive once you factor in gear and travel, and people who are short of time find it easier to unwind indoors.
Question 3. Do you think outdoor activities are more beneficial than indoor activities? Here is how to build the answer.
On balance, I'd say yes, though I'd want to qualify that fairly heavily. Physiologically, the evidence seems fairly strong. Daylight regulates sleep, and there does seem to be decent research suggesting that time in green space lowers stress in a way an indoor gym session doesn't quite replicate. That said, I'd be wary of setting up a false opposition here. Learning an instrument or joining a debating society indoors delivers benefits that hiking simply doesn't. So rather than ranking them, I'd argue the ideal is a balance, with the outdoors covering the physical and psychological restoration side.
Question 4. Why do some people like doing extreme sports? Here is how to build the answer.
The obvious answer is the adrenaline. There's a genuine physiological reward, a rush of dopamine and endorphins that some people find close to addictive. But I suspect that's only part of it. For a lot of people, it's about identity. Extreme sports come with a whole community and a certain image, and being the person who skydives is quite an appealing thing to be. And there's a third factor, which is control. Modern life is fairly risk-free, but also fairly powerless, so deliberately choosing a risk you get to manage yourself is oddly reassuring.
Question 5. Do you think people living in safe places prefer extreme sports? Here is how to build the answer.
That's an interesting proposition, and my instinct is that there's something in it, although I'd hesitate to state it as fact. The reasoning would be that if your day-to-day life is very secure and predictable, you're left with an appetite for risk that isn't being used up, so you go looking for it deliberately. Whereas if you're already dealing with real instability, the last thing you want at the weekend is more danger. That said, extreme sports are expensive and safe. Stable countries tend to be wealthy ones. So it might just be that people there can afford the equipment, the training, and the insurance.
And the Part 3 language bank. These are the phrases that let you take a position, then qualify it without contradicting yourself. Learn the 4 groups rather than the 12 phrases, because the groups transfer to every topic you will ever be asked about. Finally, why these answers sit at band 9. Fluency and coherence, a full 2-minute turn sequence with the planning doing the linking work invisibly. Lexical resource, precise and idiomatic rather than merely advanced. Grammatical range and accuracy, a wide range of structures used because the meaning needed them. And pronunciation, which honestly cannot be demonstrated on a slide, and which this synthesized narration is not evidence of either. One important caveat. Band 9 here is our own quality assessment against the public ielts band descriptors. It is not a certified examiner score. That is the full topic. Now your turn. Set a timer for 1 minute and write your own notes for this exact card. Speak for 2 minutes and record it. Then play it back and check one thing only: did you finish or did you trail off? Post your final line in the comments, because that is the part almost everybody skips. Subscribe to BMaster79 for the rest of the series, and I will see you in the next one.